The next segment will begin with using the roller to block in sight lines, and we've had a 3 or 4 minute break. We get a break every 20 minutes. If Robin is in a less comfortable pose, we might break up to 7 minutes, but she's pretty comfortable. None of her limbs are going to sleep yet, so we're back after 3 or 4 minutes. She has arranged her body according to the marks that we placed with the tape and the eyebrow pencil, so she is about set the way she was when we stopped working. I am primarily an oil painter, and some people say that I use watercolor like an oil. That's not quite true, but I can see why they would say that. And I work with disabled painters in Morganton, North Carolina, and one of them was going to begin using gouache for the first time. So I thought, I better learn how to control watercolor and gouache myself. And so just on a lark, I got some of those paints, and I thought it would be fun, just since I wasn't doing anything with this work, it was just for fun. I thought it would be fun to pull the watercolor down on my palette the way a printmaker would do. I'd taken 1 or 2 printmaking classes, and I loved the way the transparent oil inks looked on that piece of glass when the brayer brought them down. So I thought, well, I'll try that with watercolor. So I squeezed out, you can see quite a lot of paint here for a watercolorist. This happens to be yellow ochre. It happens to be a gouache. And I'm going to begin by loading the edge of the brayer like so. I try to vary everything I do, but I do have one rule with this approach, and that is that you have to turn your roller in the same way. If you scrub back and forth while you're loading your roller, you're going to get a line of paint. Now, when we roll onto here, we'll go back and forth. That's fine. But when you're loading your roller, you have to pull in the same direction always. Now, at this point, I'm just rolling the edge, and I'm going to do some drawing with the edge. That means I'm going to turn this, I'm going to do a wheelie with my roller. So these are sight lines, and they're going to extend across the figure, but onto the sides of the paper as well. We call this the format, and I want the format to be touched by these sight lines that I'm putting on here. The shoulders are on a bit of a slant. Her left shoulder is at about, it's above the horizontal. Her left shoulder is above the horizontal slightly. So, and I've touched my paper. You might recall from the last time, my figure is going to be somewhat in this arena here. I like the feel of this paper. All right, so here is a mark, kind of where the shoulders might be, somewhere along in there. Now that is not perhaps an exact mark, I don't care. If the shoulders end up in a slightly different place, then that will set up a rhythm, at least a rhythm, and I'll be happy with that. All right, so the shoulders may be about here, and then the curve of her neck may be, which will be in reality about here. We'll just start like this. That I wasn't on my edge enough, so I got a much thicker line, but I don't care. This is yellow ochre. It'll blend in however I decide to use it. I've got the drape behind her here. Okay, and I've got the midline of her body about in here, and the side of her torso underneath the breast about here, maybe. And now I have the back curve of this settee. I have her underarm, and then let's see, so maybe that's the back. You probably can't even see that curve, but I know it's there. All right, and I don't have, in this particular setup, I don't have any windows or telephone poles or anything behind her. But I do have the side of the settee and her arms and stuff, but that's all right. This is kind of the start. And so it's an array of lines. They don't say figure to you, but I can begin to find a figure in here eventually. And these lines some of them will show through in the finished painting and hopefully establish some sort of rhythm that will be interesting. And I'll use this roller kind of throughout the painting. And now I'm going to just lay in a little color. Remember, always pulling the roller in the same way, and you can see that transparent look that I so admired in printmaking. By the way, this is freezer paper. It's the shiny side of freezer paper, and I have wrapped it around a piece of masonite. And the masonite has holes drilled in it with a string, so I can easily carry this on location for landscape work if I choose to. And this very loosely relates to the blocks of color that I'm observing, but this is in no way a template. This figure is in here. This is the side of her head, kind of. And these are not the colors that I'll be finished with, but it's... And now I'd like to have a little dark. I'm going to use a painting knife and thank you, and mix a little dark. This happens to be brown matter, not a color that I'm very familiar with, but when I read what was in it, it looked interesting to me, and I thought, oh, I'll give that a try today. This is it includes Quin colors, so we're trying this for the first time. And I'm going to mix a neutral with my Viridian. These earthy reds tend to be strong, so I'm just going to use a little bit. Viridian tends to be rather weak in comparison. And try and get a little bit of dark into this, pulling the roller through. You can see how beautiful, I don't know if you can get a camera on that, but you can see how beautiful this color is when it spreads out. Now I picked up a yellow blob on that, darn it. Didn't mean to do that. All right. Pretty. I've got that yellow underpainting on there, and it's you know, very springy and lovely. A little more of this Viridian. You can see I use quite a lot of paint. It's fun to try something a little different. As I said, this was a lark when I started it. But over time, there began to be more substance and value to the finished painting. So I want this color shoulder coming all the way over to the edge somehow here. And that's a very pretty neutral. I like this earthy red that I'm trying. This brown matter. I know a lot of watercolorists use that, so all right. The color is not well mixed in this case. I've got red and green separate down here, so that could be interesting. Let's see, shoulders, base. This may be I'm hoping that might be the cast shadow against the side of that settee. And if you could see, as I can see, you would see that beautiful earth red and the Viridian separate, but blending into that beautiful neutral. Now that's a nice mark. That to me is a good little painting right there. Okay. And I wonder what would happen. Let's see. This is Rambling Rose. She has a cool slip on, cool in tone. And of course, with all the color there, the color that is there, by far that is the most dominant color, but it's not really a painting about a slip. It's a painting with a figure. It's a painting that includes a figure that's wearing a slip. So I'm going to get a little bit of that pink elsewhere, just so that it won't be so isolated. Just mixing now with that yellow ochre into a warmer tone. Where's my roller? That one's dirty. I bought this roller. This is a wallpaper roller from a hardware store. And if I'd had a clean rubber roller like this, I would have used it, but I didn't. So I'm going to put a little white with that pink. So it'll lay on top. It's sinking right in. That's that pink and a little bit of green. This will give me a nice gray. That rambling rose with the viridian will make a beautiful gray sort of color. It's not really laying on top right now. When you lay the gouache on, you have to have a dry underpainting or it will sink in just as though it were watercolor. All right, that's pretty soppy. And Robin, let's take a little break. I forgot to set the timer. Okay, that'll be a good place to break.